560 The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, mentioning that what you saw in Chicago over the weekend at Millennium Park at 31st Street Beach, that's coming to the suburbs, and in some places, in some instances, already arrived. And by the way, I'm not saying that it's Chicago kids necessarily going to the suburbs. They don't need to. The suburbs are growing their own indigenous thug class.
Well, did you see what happened in Lombard on Friday night?
Precisely what I'm talking about.
There's mass fighting. It's online. It's just grotesque to watch, and I don't know how much more people can take.
It shut down the carnival. The fighting shut down the carnival. And so that's right there near Tony Glen Ellen, where we had a caller talking about how head in the cloud or buried in the sand, these offals that run the leafy suburbs are. That Lombard carnival fiasco, as a friend pointed out, that's not far from Butterfield Country Club, where you got a lot of obnoxious, woke pea-hats, men and women. Okay. All right, well, just let us know how it goes. Jackson Potter, a longtime higher-up in the Chicago Teachers Union, dyed in the wool red, just like BLM Brandon, our new mayor. Here's his reaction to the reports of 200 kids doing their Clockwork Orange impersonations around town. He tweeted, "Imagine if every big corporation was forced to fund 200 youth jobs that are year-round and the city had creative, engaging spaces for youth in the summer. We'd have a safer, healthier, less violent, and more equitable Chicago." This is what you're dealing with. This is the mentality of the leadership of the city. If every big corp was forced to fund 200 youth jobs that were year-round. We don't have creative, engaging spaces for youth in summer. We have frickin' Millennium Park that we have to turn into a prison camp. That's a mile of creative, enjoyable green space. Forced to fund 200 youth jobs.
Yeah, like they're going to take those jobs. Mm-hmm.
Well, right.
A lot of them don't want to go to school.
CPS, right. Truancy. Start with truancy. CPS has 30,000 kids. They don't know where they are.
No clue.
30,000 kids that were enrolled pre-pandemic that are gone. The test scores. The test scores. Fewer than 1 in 4 CPS students read or do math at grade level. I mean, I guess there are some summer jobs where you don't need to read or do math per se, but there are a lot of entry-level jobs at those big corporations Jackson Potter is talking about where you do. And the number of kids, teenagers, that have criminal records, we're supposed to tell employers to just ignore that too. So punctuality, safety, competency, attitude, that's all just out the window. You're not allowed to make distinctions because, of course, meritocracy is emblematic of white supremacy. This is, I don't know what words to use. I just use their words. This is what they think, and if that's aligned with your thinking, Godspeed. And if it's not, believe them when they say what they say. For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Mark Hemingway, who's got a perfectly timed column on the topic. He's a senior writer at RealClearInvestigations.com. Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, glad to be back.
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, our newly elected mayor has made, and you got a sample of it from the teachers union flack there, has made youth employment of, not just, make work summer jobs for the city, but year-round youth employment, and this is the way to stop the school-to-prison pipeline and so on and so forth, create a more equitable Chicago. So I'm all for, working at an early age. I started working when I was 11, but I think they have a different idea about what youth employment is supposed to look like than perhaps you do.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, teenage jobs aren't always the most rewarding experiences or whatever, but I mean, almost that's the point. I mean, I worked a lot of terrible jobs. I worked a summer at a porta potty place for crying out
Ooh,
loud.
it's hot and smelly.
Wait. What did you have to do? How did you have to defile yourself at that place?
Well, so this is actually kind of a bit of a crazy story, but so my job at the porta potty place was actually great. I mean, and a lot of, for the most part, I mean, they're paying me about 2 or 3 times the minimum wage at the time, like $12 an hour, 25 years ago or more. And what I was mostly doing is I was building new porta potties, which they would ship flat packed in these plastic parts, and I would rivet them together. But that all changed my very last day on the job when the guy who ran the place, who I really liked, my boss at the place. It's a long story, but they had about 8 or no, it's just like 10, it was about a dozen porta potties that were sitting on the back of a flatbed trailer in the back of the lot. They hadn't been able to clean out. It's a long story, but they were full of paper towels that were clogging the suction hoses they used. And it was my last day in the job, and so my boss asked me to clean out all 12 toilets by hand. Elbow length gloves.
It's like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank.
Pretty much, yeah.
Did you have flashbacks when you saw the movie?
Is that why you went into journalism?
Yeah, exactly. Great training for a career in journalism, sifting through other people's species. But I mean, the thing is I did it. The guy had been extremely fair to me and paid me really well. And the guy was, it's a long story, but they had an incredibly busy summer, and everyone at the business was, spending 60, 70 hours a week driving trucks around. He had no one else to help. So, you know what? I did it. I learned something in the experience. But what's interesting about, you talking about this idea that they see teenage employment as being very helpful, I would agree. But what's fascinating to me is there's also a movement on the left right now that to portray teenage jobs as exploitative. In Iowa, they're trying to pass a law right now that would make it easier to employ, 14 or 15-year-olds in jobs. And there's been this big pushback from lefty activist groups against it. They say that this will mean that kids will be employed in meatpacking plants and all these other dangerous industries or whatever. Well, never mind. There's a lot of things that kids could do in a meatpacking plant that wouldn't be necessarily dangerous. But these same people also say that, teenagers working at McDonald's is exploitative too. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I was just talking to a friend of mine in Tennessee, and he was saying that the McDonald's next to him is paying $18, $20 an hour just to find workers. I mean, this is like factoring in inflation from when I was a kid. That's still insanely more than I was ever paid. I mean, minimum wage was $3.65 an hour when I started.
Yeah, but when I was 14, I got a work permit that my mom signed off on and worked at a fast food restaurant. And now the left is trying to say that that's abuse some way.
Yeah, they're saying that's exploitative. Yeah. No, there's a. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's so emblematic of the left, the schizophrenia, political schizophrenia, number one, but also two, everything is frozen in time for them because it's about narrative, right? So for the left, when it comes to race relations, we're still in 1960s Selma, and when it comes to industry, they just read The Jungle, and they think that's what working in manufacturing or food processing is now. It's the old meatpacking district in Chicago from the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But also it's I can't begin to describe how alien it is in our culture to think that the teenagers working is bad or exploitative. I mean, in the late 19th century, kids 10 to 19 provided a third of household income when we lived in. Obviously that was a lot to do with farming and other things, but kids were expected to work, and that had a lot to do with how character was formed and how citizens were made in this country. And to say that this is exploitative or that people have these perpetual adolescences, I mean, I think it's having a really deleterious impact on, sort of our culture and economy generally. If you look at Bureau of Labor statistics for teenage summer employment, it's dropped dramatically from the late 70s until now. I mean, nearly half or more of teenagers were working in the summer in the 70s, and now it's something like 20 or 30%. And of the kids they talk to at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a not many of the kids that are unemployed say they're actively looking for work. I mean, the fact of the matter is that kids today are comparatively privileged. Whether I don't know whether it's government social programs or whether it's rich parents or what, but kids just don't have the economic incentives to go out and work. And you're seeing that. Younger generations are kind of making a hard left turn, and it's really weird. They've just developed these toxic attitudes toward work. And then when things don't, they graduate from college and they immediately don't find a satisfying job and they're not prepared to understand what work looks like, they, all of a sudden become, communists online or something. And it's really starting to affect their politics, I'm afraid.
Yeah, right. They look around and say, who's got something that I want? To say, well, they're not paying their fair share or whatever phraseology they use. And this is about, and then that feeds the whole redistributionist game. That's ultimately their go-to. But I mean, to me, it's sort of like the no homework, no discipline in schools, which is also the philosophy of our soon-to-be mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing here. So you invest in our community. We need to clear out the big box stores for mom and pop shops and entrepreneurship. And where do you think people develop entrepreneurial skills? Where do you think they even get the idea to be an entrepreneur? By telling them that work is exploitive and you don't have to do homework and you don't have to behave yourself or operate by the rules of civil adult society, and then all of a sudden you're going to open up a electric contracting company that's going to go gangbusters? I mean, it just doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, you look, I'm not kidding myself. I mean, I write from home for a living. I make a good living, and I've got a pretty cushy job. But that works because, one, I have some sort of self-imposed discipline because I learned this in a lot more difficult jobs when I was younger. I learned a lot of, skill sets about, managing myself that, make this work. If someone had, if someone had given me this job, 20 years ago, or more, when I was just starting out, I'm not sure I would have succeeded. I just simply didn't have the skills that I developed through, a lot more difficult jobs to get to this place where I could, build a job that works for myself, based on my own skills and my own discipline. But it took a while to get to that place, and it took a while for me to, cultivate those skills. And I think the attitudes of workplaces and stuff generally have changed. When I started out in journalism, I worked at a daily newspaper, and I remember at one point I screwed up something, and someone got it from their desk and walked across the newsroom and screamed at me in front of 20 or 30 people. People look at incidents like that and they say that's bullying or that's abusive and stuff like that. And I agree it's not an optimal way to handle things in the workplace, but you know what? I learned something, and I was afraid to make that mistake again. And I worry that the pendulum has swung too far the other way. Maybe we don't have to scream at people in workplaces, but at the same time, I hear all kinds of horror stories from people employing younger generations about them having emotional issues and using excuses not to come to work and other things like that. And it's just we've got to find a balance here between having some sort of imposed discipline in the workplace and teaching people how to work under certain penalties compared to what we're doing now.
And I mean, I know this is like so simplistic and understood, I think, from most productive people, but also like you're a better journalist and a better writer than you were when you started out, because you spent all these years honing your craft and understanding the dynamics of what you're covering and how to provide the most value for the reader, just like anybody in any other profession. But you don't just wake up and you're the best at this or you're the best at that. You got to work at it like anything else, and that just seems to be like an increasingly foreign idea. Self-esteem is because I'm special, not because I'm doing something special.
Right. So, this self-esteem, comes from actual accomplishment, whatever, you need to accomplish things to build self-esteem. You don't, need self-esteem to accomplish things. And I think people are looking through the wrong end of the telescope on that. But also it's just, starting out young. I mean, I worked more ridiculous, odd jobs than I can remember. I mean, frankly, the porta potty place was far and away the least demanding, job and difficult one compared to many others I had. But, it's also a situation here where I such a diverse amount of experience I had when I was younger, working in different jobs and stuff like that. I mean, it provided me a window into, how a lot of other people, work and live and provided me with a baseline of understanding for a lot of things about, the economy and the culture and other things like that, and things that I still draw on to this day that, when I write, you spend, a day changing irrigation pipe with a bunch of, Hispanic guys that barely speak English. When you're a teenager, you learn some things about, other people and what's going on. Whereas I'm afraid that there's a lot of middle class kids or, other kids in this country that just don't, get that kind of like work experience and don't get to, see what it's like, what's involved in making the economy run, what's involved in getting supplies to your door at the grocery store or other things like that. I mean, once you do that sort of thing, you have an appreciation for sort of how the world works and what's necessary to sustain it.
Very good. Senior writer at RealClearInvestigations.com. He is Mark Hemingway. Check out his latest piece on teen employment. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. On AM 560, The Answer.
Folks, when shopping for a home,